Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to welcome all of us to this presentation about cohesion and coherence of discourse in the story of Layangan Putus on social media Facebook. And in these videos, my group, specifically the second group, will explore the concept of cohesion and coherence in discourse and how they can be observed in the popular movie of Layangan Putus on social media Facebook. And hopefully, by analyzing the ways in which language is used to create a coherent and cohesive narrative, we will gain insights and uh, the importance of these concepts in creating effective communication. And as I mentioned earlier, the material will be explained by the second group, which including 9 members. They are Muhammad Nurul Ikram Kadir, who will explain about introduction, and then Andi Ananda Humaira, who will explain about literature review, in this case, discourse, cohesion, and coherence. And then Ade Fitri Albar, who will explain about research method. Next is Almira Salsabila, who will explain about findings. In this case, grammatical cohesion. And then Andi Fitri Rahmasari, who will also explain about findings, in this case about lexical cohesion. And then next is Aprilia Reskiwirdani, who will explain about the findings as well, about temporal coherence and intensity coherence. And then the next is Hirma Mutiara Suyeti, who will explain about causality coherence and contrast coherence and chronological coherence. And the next is Andi Ilham Akbar, me, myself, who will explain about the discussion. And the last is Andiana, who will explain about the conclusion. Okay, now without further ado, Muhammad Ikram will explain about the introduction.
Okay, thank you for the chance that has been given. So I am Muhammad Nurul Ikram Kadir. I'm going to explain the first part, which is the introduction of this article under the title Cohesion and Coherence of Discourse in the Story of Layangan Putus on social media Facebook. So language is used in every daily human activity, which certainly has a close relationship with social phenomena. Language is used as a tool to convey one's thoughts and feelings to others. Every person has a different background. Thus, in conveying one's thoughts or ideas must use different or varied languages. Because the differences in the background include difference in the educational backgrounds, the origins of residence, work, age, social experience, and so forth. The background affects the success of communication. Research about cohesion and coherence has indeed been done a lot, but there are still many people who have not yet understood the essence of cohesion and coherence from a text or discourse. Among the studies conducted by A22 examine about cohesion and coherence of the students' narrative writings in SMP Negeri 2 Banjar. The result of the study state that there were still many students who did not understand the meaning of cohesion and coherence. Based on the data, the type of cohesion that often arises was conjunction. Analyzing cohesion and coherence in newspaper magazines, especially those relating to political news, is still a favorite topic of discussion within the scope of discourse analysis. For example, in analyzing the function of the text in discourse, we will certainly use cohesion and coherence tools, as researched by Mubarak 2014, who analyzed the cohesion contained in the political news published by the Jakarta Post, show that the newspaper has a good cohesive tool in every paragraph. In this research, the cohesion device becomes an instrument in summarizing the results of the study. Some of the research above examine discourse in print media, in current area where technological developments are increasingly sophisticated. It is rare for people to do written communication using letters or writing in diary. People usually express their problems or happiness through social media such as Facebook, Twitter, and other social media. As happened a few moments ago, where there there was a woman with a Facebook account by Mommy Us. She talked about the betrayal of her husband who has tempted by another woman and ended in divorce in her Facebook account. The story made a full comment of Mommy Us account feel similar and immediately became a trending topic on Facebook and Twitter. Yeah, I think that's all for me. I'm give it back to the moderator. Thank you.
Okay, that is all the explanation of the introduction, and we move on to Andi Ananda Humaira, who will explain about literature review.
Okay, thank you so much for the chance, and now I will explain the literature review of this article. There are 3 points, which are discourse, cohesive, and coherence. So, I'll be explaining the first point, which is discourse. So, discourse can be defined as a verbal or written communication that involves the exchange of ideas, opinions, informations, and feelings among individuals or groups. It is a way of expressing and conveying meaning and can take many different forms, such as conversations, debates, speeches, interviews, or written texts. According to Alwi, discourse is a complex phenomenon that involves the use of language in social context. He emphasized that discourse is not just a collection of individual words and sentences, but rather a series of interconnected communicative events that shape social interactions. Discourse is not just about the words that are being used, but also about the social context in which they are being used. This includes factors such as the speaker's identity, the audience expectations, and the cultural norms that govern the communication. In conclusion, discourse played a pivotal role in communication and society. Discourse analysis can provide valuable insights into the language and social practices that underpin our experiences and relationships. Okay, moving on to the next one is cohesion. So cohesion can have different meanings depending on the context in which it's used. However, if we are talking about cohesion in the context of communication or language, here is a definition by a well-known linguist, which is from Halliday and Hassan from 1676. Halliday and Hassan, a prominent British linguist, define cohesion as the grammatical and lexical relationships that exist within a text and that contribute to its overall coherence. Lexical cohesion, according to Halliday and Hassan, is a concept in linguistics that refers to the use of words that are related in meaning to create a cohesive text. In other words, it is the use of vocabulary and linked sentences and paragraphs together and to help the reader understand connections between ideas. So there are several types of lexical cohesion. There are synonym, repetition, and antonym. By using these cohesive devices, writer and speakers can create a more cohesive and coherent text, making it easier for readers or listeners to follow and understand the message being conveyed. So the example of repetition in lexical cohesion is: the dog chased the ball rolled down the hill was steep and covered in grass. In this example, the repeated use of the word ball and hill creates a sense of cohesion between the sentences. And the example for synonyms is: the company is experiencing a decline in revenue. Sales has been decreasing for the past few quarters. The business is struggling to stay afloat. In this example, the word decline, decreasing, and struggling all convey the idea of something going down or getting worse. Using these synonyms helps to create a sense of coherence and continuity between the sentences. And for antonyms is: the weather was hot during the day, but it became cold at night. Despite the temperature difference, it was a pleasant weekend. So in this example, the contrasting words hot and cold create a sense of cohesion by highlighting the difference in temperature. The word despite helps to connect the contrasting ideas and make them feel more cohesive. Now moving on to the last part, which is coherence. Halliday and Hassan says that cohesion is a semantic relation between an element in the text and some other elements that are crucial to the interpretation of it. In this case, the element can be presupposing and presupposed element. It is the general term of the linguistic features present in the text that have been identified as contributing to its total unity. The actualization of cohesion in any given instance, however, depends not merely on the selection of some option from within these resources, but also on the presence of some other element which resolves the presupposition that this sets up. According to Halliday, coherence in writing is the result of interaction between these three main elements. The first one is cohesive devices, and then thematic structure, and the last one is information structure. So cohesive devices are words or phrases that connect ideas and sentences. Example of cohesion devices include pronouns, conjunctions, and transitional words and phrases. Thematic structure refers to the organization of ideas around a central theme. A text with good thematic structure has a clear and consistent focus that helps the reader understand the purpose of writing. And the last one is information structure. This is the way information is presented to the reader. A text with good information structure is organized in a way that is easy to follow and understand. I think that's all that I can explain from the literature review of this article. Now moving on to the next speaker.
Okay, and that was the explanation of Andi Ananda Humaira. And next we're gonna move on to A22 Albar, who will explain about the research method.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is A22 Albar, and right now I'm going to explain about the research methodology of the research with the title Cohesion and Coherence of Discourse in the Story of Layangan Putus on the social media Facebook, that read by Ani Latifa and Solis Triyono. As we know that there are two kinds of research. The first is qualitative research and the second one is quantitative research. In this study, the researcher was used descriptive qualitative research. As we know also, there are several types of qualitative research approach. There are ethnography, case study, document or text study. Also, there are grounded theory, and then there are natural observation. In this case, the researchers was used document or text study as the methodology of this research. It because document or text study that focus on the analysis of interpretation of written material based on the context. And also, that's why the researcher was used document or text study, because in this study, the material under study is a discourse from the some post of anyone who posts about the Layangan Putus on social media Facebook. And then it's about the data that the researcher used for the study. In this study, the researcher will use discourse quotation from someone post on social media Facebook. It's about the story of Layangan Putus. And according to Sugiono in 2011, data source are all the things that can provide information about data. Based on the source, data source, it can be divided into two types or two kinds. The first is primary data source, and the second one is secondary data source. In this case, or in this study, the researcher was used social media Facebook as the primary data source, and then for the secondary data source, the researcher will use literature, article, journal, or site on the internet that relevant about this study. In this study, the researcher become the main instrument of the study. Why? It's because the researcher become a planner, it become data collector, and also the research become the data analyzer of the study. According to Arikunto in 2013, there are three stages of the study. The first is the stage of making the research design. The second one is the stage of research implementation, and the last one is about the research report. This study examines the aspect of cohesion and coherence, the axis of discourse in the story of Layangan Putus. In this study, the researcher used written data. In this case, the researcher read whole the part of story Layangan Putus and then comprehended sentence by sentence in the paragraph of the story Layangan Putus. After read, the researcher used the note technique and grouped the data into each data group to find the aspect of cohesion and coherence in this story of Layangan Putus. After that, the researcher analyzed the cohesion and coherence of the data obtained by the researcher. I think enough for my explanation about the research methodology. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, that was the explanation from A22. And next is Almira Salsabila, who will explain about the findings, in this case, grammatical cohesion and all the submaterial.
Well, my name is Almira Salsabila, and I'm going to explain to you about the grammatical cohesion. Based on the data analysis, the researcher found the grammatical cohesion and lexical cohesion. First, I will explain to you the grammatical cohesion that the researcher found on this research. There were three types of grammatical cohesion in this study. First is reference, second is conjunction, and the last one is substitution. According to Sumarlam, reference is grammatical cohesion in the form of certain lingual units that refer to other lingual units that precede or follow it. So, there are three types of referencing. First is personal referencing, second is demonstrative referencing, and last is comparative referencing. In this research, the researcher found the demonstrative reference. Okay, so this is what the researcher found about the demonstrative reference of place. Let me read for you. Musola memang tak berjarak jauh dari rumah, hanya terhalang satu rumah dari tempat kami tinggal. Anak-anak sudah biasa berangkat sholat dan mengaji sendiri. Ini salah satu yang membuat aku terus berusaha mempertahankan rumah ini. So, the researcher give bold for ini in the sentence, ini salah satu yang membuat aku terus berusaha bla bla bla. And the second one is mempertahankan rumah ini. So, the first ini refers to musola. Musola memang tak berjarak jauh dari rumah. That's the first sentence. And in the last sentence, the writer again mention about musola. Ini salah satu yang membuat aku terus berusaha mempertahankan rumah ini. And the second one, mempertahankan rumah ini. The second ini refers to rumah. That's the example of demonstrative reference of place. For the second one is the reference of time. Let me read for you. Sekarang dia sudah duduk di kelas 2 sekolah dasar. Here, the researcher gives bold for the word sekarang, and the word sekarang here refers to duduk di kelas 2 sekolah dasar. So that's how the writer of the story refers dia sudah duduk di kelas 2 sekolah dasar and give reference of time by the word sekarang. Now we will move to the substitution. So substitution, according to Sumarlam, is a grammatical cohesion in the form of certain lingual units that replace another lingual units to obtain differentiation. Let me read for you what the researcher found about the substitution in this story. Tetapi hari Minggu kemarin, kudampingi dia mengerjakan PR di buku tematik. Amir terlihat kepayahan dalam menyelesaikan soal matematika. Here, the researcher give both for the word mengerjakan and menyelesaikan. These two words have the same meaning, but the writer of the story used different words to substitute. So the word menyelesaikan replace the word mengerjakan, even though they have the same meaning. The author or the writer of the story often use substitution to give a variation of their writing. So that's why substitution is also important in writing. Let me read for you the second findings of substitution. Iseng aku tawarkan untuk kembali mengambil bimbingan matematika di Kumon dengan catatan berhenti sejenak les DIF dengan tidak mengambil term selanjutnya. Here, the researcher give both for the word bimbingan and the word les. As we know, bimbingan and les have the same meaning. However, the writer of the story used different words to give variation, as what I explained to you, and this is how substitution appear in discourse. Now we'll move to the conjunction. According to Sumarlan, conjunction is grammatical cohesion that is done by connecting one element to another in the discourse in the form of lingual units such as words, clause, phrases, sentences, and paragraphs. There are several types of conjunction, such as coordinative conjunction, correlative conjunction, and subordinative conjunction. Coordinative conjunction is the conjunction that connects two or more elements that have equal importance or have the same status. The coordinative conjunction found were dan, tetapi, padahal, and etc. Subordinative conjunction is the conjunction that connects two or more clauses that do not have the same syntactic status. In this research, the researcher found several subordinative conjunctions such as seraya, sementara, seketika, setelah, sambil, hingga, kalau, sebab, karena, sehingga, namun, dengan, that were found throughout on the whole story. That's all from me. I will give it to the next presenter.
Okay, that was the explanation from Almira Salsabila, and the next is Andi Fitri Rahmasari, who will explain about the findings there about lexical cohesion and all the sub-materials.
Okay, thank you. I am Andi Fitri Rahmasari. Will continue the material, and the next part in findings is about lexical cohesion. So, according to Sumarlam 2003, lexical cohesion is the relationship between elements in this discourse semantically. The lexical cohesion contained in this discourse, the first is repetition. So, again, according to Sumarlam 2003, repetition is a repetition of the lingual unit of sound, syllable, word, or sentence part that is considered important to emphasize in an appropriate context. For example, in the sentence, aku ke Jakarta sekarang, aku tak peduli jika harus hilang di sana. Aku akan mencarimu sampai ketemu. In the sentence that I mentioned before, there is anaphoric repetition, which is the repetition of the lingual unit in the form of the first word or phrase at the end of the next line or sentence, according to Sumarlam 2003. Jadi repetition di kalimat yang saya sebutkan tadi itu adalah kata aku. Kata aku di kalimat tersebut 3 kali berulang. So the next is synonymy. The function of the synonym is to establish an equivalent meaning relationship between certain lingual units with other lingual units in a discourse, according to Sumarlam 2003. Based on the lingual form in this discourse, there are several kinds of synonymy. The first is synonymy clause or sentence with clause or sentence. The second is synonymy of word with the word. And the third is synonymy of words with phrases or vice versa. And the last is synonymy of phrases with phrases. So the example of synonymy clause or sentence with clause or sentence in this discourse is tak berjarak jauh dengan terhalang satu rumah. Di kalimat Musala memang tak berjarak jauh dari rumah, hanya terhalang satu rumah dari tempat tinggal kami. The next is the example of synonymy of word with the word. Di kalimat kulipat mukena dan sajadahku, kurapikan tempat tidur kami. Sinonim yang dimaksud di sini yaitu kata lipat dengan kata lipat dengan rapikan. The next is synonymy of words with phrases, yaitu kata bersandar dengan meminta dan memohon. Di kalimat aku punya Allah untuk bersandar, aku punya Allah untuk meminta dan memohon. The next is synonymy of phrases with phrases, yaitu memutus komunikasi dengan bersikap acuh. In the sentence, Dedi, mereka boleh saja memutus komunikasi denganku, ibu dari anak-anaknya, bersikap acuh dan mencabut segala fasilitas di rumah ini. Okay, the next is about antonymy. Antonymy, according to Sumarlam 2003, antonymy is also called opposition of meaning. Antonymy is another name for objects or other things or lingual units whose meaning is opposite or in opposition to other linguals. So, there are several antonymy that found in this discourse, yaitu surat cinta, antonimnya surat peringatan di kalimat dan siang ini aku mendapat surat cinta dari PLN. Seorang petugas menaruh surat peringatan akan adanya pemutusan sementara aliran listrik bila tidak segera melakukan pembayaran. So, I think that's all from me. Back to the moderator. Thank you.
And the next is Aprilia Reskiwirdani, who will explain about temporal coherence and intensity coherence.
My name is Aprilia Reskiwirdani. I will explain about temporal coherence and intensity coherence. The first, temporal coherence. According to Sumadi, temporal coherence, namely coherence which states the relationship of time meaning between one sentence with other sentence. Hartati, 2007, 45. Aku, 32 tahun, perantauan dari pelosok daerah. Hidup di Bali sudah 14 tahun. Aku menjalani pendidikan dokter hewan di Universitas Negeri Udaya tahun 2004. Pulang kampung 2011 hanya untuk menikah, kemudian kembali ke Bali karena suamiku bekerja di sini. Akhirnya setelah 12 hari pencarian, dia mengabarkan akan pulang. Mas Arif memintaku menunggu di rumah. Tapi rasa khawatirku memuncak sudah. Aku tidak bisa duduk manis menunggunya di rumah. Segera kupacu mobil menuju bandara. Teringat 10 hari lalu, aku penuh kebingungan mencarinya. Setelah kemungkinan berkecamuk di kepalaku. Aku resmi menjadi janda setelah 8 tahun pernikahan. Aku sudah menemaninya dari tahun 2005. Total aku mengenalnya adalah 14 tahun. Pernikahan kami menghasilkan 5 orang anak. Anak bungsuku meninggal saat kulahirkan 4 bulan lalu. In the example above, it appears that there are 6 sentences. In that sentence, there is a relationship between the meaning of time start with setelah 12 hari, 10 hari lalu, 8 tahun, tahun 2005, 14 tahun, dan 4 bulan. And then the second, intensity coherence. Coherence of intensity, namely coherence which state the seriousness of or affirmation relationship contained in a number of markers in its function as a relation between one sentence with other sentence. Sumadi 2007 46. Mas Arif paham menyentuh lawan jenis adalah haram baginya, bahkan menundukkan pandangan terhadap wanita non-muslim adalah kewajiban. Aku percaya betul suamiku, tapi kemana dia? The example above consists of 4 sentences. Among the sentences of are the expression indicate by the conjunction bahkan. Enough. Thank you.
Okay, that was the explanation of temporal coherence and intensity coherence. And the next is Hirma Mutiara Suyeti, who will explain about causality coherence, contrast coherence, and chronological coherence.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Hirma Mutiara from the second group. I will present about causality coherence, contrast coherence, and chronological coherence. According to this subject, there are many kind of effect, relationship, and sentence. Contoh, namun kita putuskan untuk berhenti mengambil subjek bahasa Inggris karena Amir lebih tertarik belajar di English First, lembaga les bahasa asing yang menitik beratkan pada latihan percakapan menggunakan bahasa Inggris. Contoh lain, musola memang tidak berjarak jauh dari rumah, hanya terhalang satu rumah dari tempat kami tinggal. Dan yang terakhir, dia senang sekali mendapat hadiah permen dari ustazah karena sudah berhasil menghafal surah Al-Asr. Next. Next, about contrast coherence. Contrast coherence, namely coherence which states the relationship of contradiction or distance between one sentence with another sentence. Contohnya, anak-anak masih belum pulang dari musola. Mereka mengerjakan sholat isya di sana. Arya memang tidak pulang sedari maghrib tadi, berbeda dengan kakak dan adiknya. Amir dan Alman memilih makan malam selepas maghrib di rumah. Sedangkan Arya di hari Senin dan Kamis terbiasa ikut buka puasa sunnah bersama di musola. Keterangan. Between the first and the second sentence are marked with conjunction, berbeda dengan. Next. Next, about chronological coherence. Chronological coherence, namely coherence which states the relationship of time series. Beside that, this coherence is often shown by conjunction which state temporally. Contohnya, kuarahkan ia ke sofa ruang tamu, kuletakkan pelan Arya yang juga mulai terjaga. Kemudian ku dekap erat Abi. Contoh yang lain, Bi adalah panggilan sayang kami. Aku lupa yang menyebabkan kami saling memanggil Bi. Mungkin dari baby, kemudian beralih menjadi Bi. Bi, aku ke Jakarta sekarang. Aku tidak peduli jika harus hilang di sana. Aku akan mencarimu sampai ketemu. Kemudian dibalas. Pesanku kemudian dibalas. The sentence in the example above states the various events that occur chronologically as indicated by the element kemudian. Thank you.
Okay, that was the explanation about the causality, contrast, and chronological coherence. And the next is me, Andil Makbar, who will explain about the discussion. So in this research, the researcher aimed to explore the cohesion and the coherence in the Layangan Putus movie, written by a Facebook account named Mami ASF. The story revolves around her family problems, when her husband betrayed and divorced her. She spilled her feelings into a post on her Facebook status, as she also had a hobby of writing. To her surprise, the post gathered appeal and sympathy from the people who read it. However, shortly after, she deleted the text and apologized to all readers, thanking those who sympathized and prayed to her children. The concept of cohesion and coherence in discourse refers to the ways in which language is used to connect ideas and construct meaning. In their book, Cohesion in English by Helde and Hassan, define cohesion as a factor that influences whether a text is well connected or just a group of unrelated sentences. Based on these findings, the cohesion in the story of Layangan Putus was created through the use of cohesive devices, including grammatical and lexical cohesion. The writer paid attention to creating cohesion by using references, substitution, and conjunctions. The use of conjunctions such as dan and kemudian for temporal conjunctions and karena for causation appeared frequently in the story. However, ellipses, which Helde and Hassan stated as rarely found in narration or descriptions but present in many example dialogues, was not used. The finding implies that there is still much knowledge about cohesion in writing that is not understood, not only in non-academic discourse, but in academic discourse such as students writing, ellipsis was rarely found. In another study, Ayub et al. Examined that the cohesion and coherence of student writing in the second grade of senior high school and found that references, lexical cohesion, and conjunctions were dominantly used by students because they were considered quite easy to apply. Meanwhile, ellipses and substitution were rarely used in their writings as they were quite difficult to use. Students did not know exactly how, where, and when to use them and preferred to avoid using them in their writing. Furthermore, students' ability to make cohesive and coherent writing is also influenced by their first language skills. Leo conducted research on Chinese students and found that their first language and length residence in Canada also influenced students' ability to make cohesive and coherent writing. Canadian-born Chinese or CBC students tended to be more able to explore the use of lexical and referential discourse markers compared to the students with a shorter length of residence. In terms of coherence, the story made sense as the writer built narration from the ideas of each paragraph. The finding is consistent with Wang, Hui, and Sui statement that conceptual coherence is the consistency of structure and point of view, meaning that an article must focus clearly on them. From the result of data analysis, we can conclude that the story writer wrote a coherent story where the structure of the text is in line with the genre of the text. The coherence of the story is also seen from its generic structure. From the findings, the writer of the story used the general generic. In case of complication, the writer showed simple and complex complications, indicating good competence in exploring varied complication. All of this depends on the level of intelligence, talent, and experience in writing stories. To summarize, the story Layangan Putus on Facebook showed cohesion and coherence in its use of cohesive devices such as references, substitutions, and conjunctions. However, ellipsis was rarely used. And this finding implies that there is still much knowledge about cohesion in writing that is not understood. Okay, that's my explanation about the discussion. And next, the last material is about conclusion will be explained by Andiana.
I'm Andiana from Group 2. Let me present my part, its conclusion. Based on the findings of the research and discussion of cohesion and coherence of discourse in the Layangan Putus tell on social media website Facebook, it was discovered that there were references in the usage of cohesion and coherence. Two issues are located in the study. Cohesion, which include grammatical and lexical cohesion, and coherence, which include temporal contrast, casual, chronological, and intensity. According to the findings, the language use had cohesion and coherence, which allowed the author of the short story Layangan Putus to connect one language element to other language ones. Cohesion in the form of conjunction in the most typical type of the data found. Because conjunctions are frequently used to link the same two parts in a single discourse, they have been found to be common in certain earlier research. Its purpose was to bolster the primary points raised throughout the dialogue. That's all, and thank you.
And okay, that was the last explanation of the material today about the cohesion and coherence of discourse in the story of Layangan Putus on social media Facebook. Hopefully, after this presentation, we will gain knowledge or more clear insights about cohesion and coherence in discourse analysis. And as for that, I think that's all right. Thank you very much for the attention. I think that's all from us. Thank you. Really sorry if there's a mistake. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.